Today we have a question about social media, and a listener wrote in to ask what to do when her spouse is getting physically fit and parading that on social media.
Welcome to the Only You Forever podcast. If you want to build a thriving, passionate marriage, we've got the research, the truth, and the answers you've been looking for. And now, here are your hosts, Caleb and Verlinda Simone Gendel.
Hey everybody, this is Q&A episode number 7, and it's about how to set boundaries on social media. During the summer season, we're handling a question every week from one of our email subscribers. And if you'd like to be part of future opportunities like this, be sure to sign up on our site at onlyyouforever.com.
So last week we answered a question a listener had about her husband who had a very high libido and was acting out due to testosterone therapy, was being, I keep running into that word, unfaithful. That's the word I need.
Okay.
As a result as well. And that was a hard one to try to answer. So if you want to see us struggle,
that was definitely a struggle.
Be sure to go back and grab that episode. Also, make sure you hit that subscribe button on your podcast player so you don't miss any future shows. We do have a couple more Q&A shows coming, and we're thankful for that. People that have written in and supplied questions for us.
Yeah.
Go ahead and make fun of me for stuttering.
No, I wasn't going to say anything.
No, I could see it written all over your face.
I've never heard you do that before. People. Anyhow.
Yeah.
I love you just the way you are.
Thanks.
Okay, Caleb, today's question.
Yes.
So a woman wrote in and says, how do you set boundaries with social media? What's acceptable to keep the marriage from the pressures of the world? For example, one spouse doesn't like revealing pictures put out, and the other is getting physically fit and feeling the need to parade.
Huh.
So that's all the background info. That's everything.
Okay. So what should we call this dear lady?
Tammy.
Okay. I'm not sure where to start on this, but I think the first thing to note is we have a spouse trying to change a spouse, which is always a challenge.
Okay, I didn't read that.
Well, he's not writing and asking how he can help himself stop posting pictures of himself looking so buff on social media.
Well,
That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
What were you going to say?
I got out of it, like, how do we set the boundaries of what's acceptable? Like, we had a podcast not too long ago about, like, every marriage is a little bit different. This is kind of one of those gray areas, and you need to discuss what's acceptable.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go there. Maybe I'm being too hard right off the bat, but maybe he's open to having this discussion with her. So should we start by assuming that?
Sure.
Okay. So that's a good question.
I've just squirreled off in another direction already.
Well,
but you go ahead.
Do you want to park that squirrel?
Yeah, I'll probably forget it when we get there, but...
Do you want to let the squirrel out?
No, you just go ahead.
So I think that setting boundaries on social media, like, it's not uncommon for couples to come with different values to the marriage around social media.
Mm-hmm.
And also what may be at play here too is different levels of the need for validation.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so these things get, kind of played out in front of everybody on Facebook or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I know what my opinions are about social media and pictures of yourself and so on. Since it's my podcast, maybe I'll go ahead and rant about that for a moment. But,
okay.
like, social media, like, find a way to use it redemptively, usefully in your marriage. And social media is a platform. You have to know that. So if you're going to put pictures of yourself out there where you're kind of, you get the phone up high, and this is, if you're female, you're doing kissy lips and you're showing the cleavage and you're married, and I'm scrolling down my feed and I'm like, why is she doing that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I'm guessing that one reason, there could be a host of reasons why she's doing that. So I'm kind of asking it a little bit harshly there, but at the same time, I'm feeling kind of sick in my stomach because I'm like, what's going on at home that she's not getting validation, or she's maybe not being affirmed for her beauty by her husband, and she has to go out for that. Okay. So there could be a deficiency on the husband's part, but there could be also on her part that he's not enough. Like, she needs more, and she's really staking her self-worth on the feedback that she can get from others on social media. And that's a really sad thing to see.
Okay.
So if that's your case, like, I just kind of wanted to challenge you with the question of, what would it be like for you to find another way to define your self-worth than comments, likes, reactions on Facebook, social media, right?
We had a podcast about social media.
Number 90, oyf.link/90. It's called Social Media is Destroying Your Marriage.
Yeah.
And
we talked there about someone who had however many followers, and it was a teenage girl, I think, and finally gave it all up because she realized this is not who I am.
Yeah. She was staking all her self-worth on the opinions of others.
Yeah.
But the other risk that's in here too that we talk about in episode 90 is that, when you put alluring pictures of yourself out on Facebook or whatever social media, that's just kind of the platform we're mostly on, so I keep talking about it.
Yeah.
But if you're putting that out there, to some people that's an invitation. And this now becomes a window that you've opened in the house of your marriage to the outside to invite others to come in and participate, where maybe that window should not be open. Well, definitely it shouldn't be open, right?
Yeah.
So
it just makes me sick when I see some woman I don't even want to see the picture because it's so revealing.
Yeah.
And then some married man will comment on it.
Saying that she's
beautiful looking good, or it just seems so wrong.
Yeah. And so this has to be a discussion between you guys as to what you feel. And I think this is an opportunity to talk about those concerns, fears, anxieties, about posting these kinds of pictures and drawing this kind of attention. In some cases, it might be worth having a discussion about those insecurities. Some are, likely many of them are valid, but maybe some of them are more driven by anxiety. Okay. And they're coming from a place of neediness too, right? So it's really hard to decipher what might be inside this question. But to me, I think the principle of modesty comes in here. And your physical beauty and attraction, or your husband's, those are primarily for each other. That attractiveness and the willingness to, I hope he poses for his wife. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That should be celebrated best inside the context of your marriage.
Yeah.
And when you put it out there, maybe other people compliment or they like or admire, but isn't that just kind of vain? That's kind of sad.
Well, Caleb, if someone's getting physically fit and feeling they need to parade,
yeah,
would he do this in real life? Would he walk around town with no shirt on, some little shorts on or whatever, strutting and flexing and...
Right.
I think
to that extreme.
Part of it needs to be reality.
Right.
We do stuff on social media that we would never do in real life.
Right.
And maybe that's a boundary that needs to be put in place.
Right.
Another question I have here is, you were saying you hope he poses for his wife. How much validation is he getting from his wife?
Oh, that could be a question too. I don't know. I don't know. And so do you think we should talk to the wife a little bit about that now?
Well, that's all I was going to say.
Sure.
What would you say?
That's fair. I really am feeling sympathetic toward this woman because her husband's flaunting himself on social media, right?
Yeah.
So please hear our empathy for that and how discouraging and kind of scary that must be at the same time.
Yeah, because
right?
those windows are being opened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I might challenge you too. And again, this is all the information that we have. So if this challenge is invalid, just, toss it out, eat the meat, spit out the bones. But
let us know.
Yeah. I'll challenge you to think about how much you're affirming your husband. Because I'll tell you what I've seen in families where one person starts to get fit or starts to work on stuff is that the other families do their best. The other members of the family, I think it's subconsciously, they do their best to sabotage the effort because it shows them up. Okay? So one time we literally had this family of 4 overweight people sitting in our living room. And I was talking very excitedly about going to CrossFit, which I was at the time.
Yeah.
And the husband's like, oh man, I should totally sign up for that. That'd be awesome. I need to get in shape. And he was starting to get excited. And then she's like, you doing CrossFit? Ha ha ha. And it turned into a big laugh and she started making fun of them. And that in families is the principle of homeostasis, where the whole family is a system. And the kids got on board too and they were laughing at the dad.
Oh, it's terrible.
It is terrible, but they had no idea they were doing it. And he laughed and he's like, yeah, whatever. He hasn't changed a bit since that day. He's still the same. But this principle in families, we observe this as therapists, is called homeostasis, which is the family has a natural inclination towards trying to keep everything the same because it's well-defined, it's predictable, and it's safe, right? Now, if you and I are both 40 pounds overweight and you go shed your 40, how's that going to reflect on me?
Right. Okay.
People are going to be like, what's Caleb doing with that hot woman, right? How did he land her? You know what I mean? Or I'm going to think that.
Okay. Am
I going to seriously, intentionally set out to sabotage you? No. But just the principle of homeostasis kicks in and the family will kind of squash these, go out on a limb sort of things that happen, right?
Okay.
So this is just where we can maybe challenge the spouse a little bit to ask yourself, if he is getting fit, how are you acting towards that? And is this creating sort of deeper insecurities within you? And maybe, how do you want to respond to this? Could this be an invitation for you to join with him, to challenge yourself about your fitness? And maybe she already is more fit than he is. I don't know. And she just doesn't create it. So we're just guessing here, okay? But I just thought I'd mention that. It might be useful to you. As I said before, take it or if it's useful, or leave it if it's not.
Okay. So back to the question of how do you set boundaries with social media?
Well, I think that she can start a conversation with him by saying, you know what, using some of our communication tools that we talk about, like when you post a picture of yourself on social media that is revealing and to me looks like parading, I feel very, insert the word there. It's going to be like insecure, threatened, worried, right?
Okay.
Especially when I see people responding that don't have our values for marriage and they're affirming, attracted, whatever. Mm-hmm. It feels very, very scary for me. And so that's how that conversation starts. And then you ask the question, is there some way that I can affirm you or acknowledge your fitness more? And is there some way that you'd be willing to set boundaries for social media so that our marriage stays sacred and it stays safe?
Right. Okay.
So that's how that conversation should go, and start as softly as you can with talking about what you see and how that impacts how you feel.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what is acceptable to keep the marriage from the pressures of the world, is that going to look different for every marriage, or there's some... They
have to define that. Okay. They do have to define that. You know, some cultures in different parts of the world, the levels of modesty and those things, they change between cultures and so on.
Right.
Modesty is modesty, but modesty is largely defined by culture.
Yes.
And so you guys need to figure out what you're happy with in your marriage.
Okay.
That you both feel safe with, and find a way to honor and respect each other in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that all good?
Yeah, I think so.
No, thanks for bringing me back to those two questions. I think that gets more to the meat of it, probably, hopefully.
Yeah. And I mean, part of social media boundaries is like not posting pictures of the other without permission.
Yeah.
You know, even if it's your wife. And we had 2 teenagers with us.
Your image belongs to you, right?
Yeah. And they were over the top. Like their mom couldn't tag them unless they looked absolutely perfect in this photo, whatever. But it made me realize, I can't just post pictures of anybody. I need to have their permission first. And I think it goes the same in marriage.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this isn't anything to do. Well, sort of is. But you changed my profile picture on me one time because you're like, oh, this is a really good picture of you. And it's like head and shoulders. I'm fully dressed.
Yeah.
I have a flower behind my ear or whatever. But people commented on it and I was still embarrassed.
Huh.
So, I don't know.
What do you mean? Like you didn't like the picture?
Well, no, it was a decent picture, but it just wasn't a picture that I would post of myself because I was smiling at you with a flower behind my ear.
Oh, yeah.
And so I felt, I don't know.
It was more personal.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, no, that's okay. It wasn't a big deal. And do you know what? I haven't even changed it off and it's been months. So it wasn't that big a deal. But it just goes to show like...
We want to be sensitive to each other.
Yeah.
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 Cool.
Anyways, didn't really need to bring that up, but that's just some extra. Okay, Caleb, let's wrap up.
Sure. So we want to shout out a huge thank you to those who left us reviews on iTunes this week. Another review from Australia.
Mm-hmm. They're winning like...
Over the New Zealanders, big time.
Big time. Loving your show, 5 stars by Mum in Oz, who says, I've been listening to your podcast for the past couple of weeks, every moment possible. Your parenting podcast was especially helpful. Hearing about studies is great, and I love how if I don't understand something, Verlinda usually talks it through again and breaks it down. I love how positive you guys are, but you don't try and make out like you're perfect. Thank you. That's because we're anything but perfect.
I was going to say we try and make out quite a bit.
Caleb!
Oh, I see what she's saying, yes. What?
You're not supposed to say that live.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, this is a marriage podcast. We don't want anybody to think that we kiss.
Caleb.
So if you'd like to get involved in our mission to help save marriages, including my own, we'd like to ask you to contribute to our crowdfunding campaign. We want to reach 5,000 marriages a week through the podcast, and we cannot do that without your help. For even $5 a month, you can help us move towards making that a reality. Please go to oif.link/give to learn more about how you can help us reach more marriages. Once again, that link is oif.link/give. So next week, Verlinda, we have a question from a wife who's trying to fix things in her marriage, but her husband won't get on board.
Mm-hmm. We hear this kind of thing quite a bit.
Yeah, we do.
What do you do if your spouse doesn't want to do this? Anyhow, that's all for today's episode. If you want to review this question or share it with others, you can do that via our short link at oyf.link/QA7. And we'd love to hear from you, so please go leave us a review on iTunes. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the OnlyYouForever.com podcast. Please help us reach and influence a wider audience by rating and reviewing our podcast at OnlyYouForever.com/love. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.